Welcome to the Colorado Inside Out Postgame, a special web-exclusive production here on Channel 12. We're always pretty grateful for that part. Let's get a quick take on a poll released by the Denver Post this week for the U.S. Senate and gubernatorial races. Hicklooper has a 1-point lead over Beaupre, and Gardner has a 2-point lead over Udall. The poll has roughly a 4% margin of error. Patty Cahoon from Westward, it's been tight races most of the season. I'm not really sure there's momentum one way or the other. But as you look at the whole poll release this week and the fact that the ballots went out this week, what do you think?
Well, we've got, 15, 18 more days, I think, before the ballots actually have to be turned in. And it does look pretty tight. And the most interesting thing about the polls that are being released now is not just how tight they are, but how many people say they're no longer undecided. So it's a very small slice of the electorate who presumably can be influenced by these tens of millions of dollars of advertising, like one vote probably for every million is what it seems to be. But the big difference is going to be who actually gets the votes out. It's one thing to say you're supporting a certain person, but it's going to be who goes out. And Natasha was talking earlier today that it is becoming a one-issue race for a lot of women that she's talked to, and it's exactly the same situation with people I have talked to. We are so tired of hearing about the IUDs or the lies about personhood, and if the big difference, I think, this year might be that women will actually be moved to go vote when other people, when men maybe are not, because there's nothing driving them to the voters, to the booths.
David Kopel from the Independence Institute and DU Law School. If it does become a one-issue campaign, does this become a blueprint until Republicans essentially nominate a pro-choice woman?
No, and I, without disrespecting Patty or Natasha's social circles, I believe that's true, but I don't think it's all, that's the only issue. I mean, if you're concerned about your health, well, what about, you want to send somebody to Congress who may be more of a check on the incompetence of the executive branch here? If you're concerned about your health, don't you wish you had somebody who had voted against the health plan that raises your premiums, takes away the insurance plan you liked, and makes you change doctors? So that works. There's a lot of really important, in some ways, life or death issues for many people on the ballot. National security. We had the war that was won in Iraq, and now ISIS is back. Obama threw away that victory. They're planning terrorist attacks in the United States, they've said. Do you want somebody in Congress who's going to be stronger on that? Or do you, and Mark Udall has said that the thing he's sick of hearing about, the last debate, was Benghazi. Well, Al-Qaeda attacked our embassy in Libya and murdered the ambassador. And the Hillary Clinton State Department and the White House put out this fraud that there was just a bunch of people who got angry because of some movie that nobody saw. That's not responsible for him to say, take that off the table. So I think there's a lot of crucial issues. But in terms of, back to your question, it's all a matter of turnout and who can get their weekly motivated voters out to the polls.
Eric Sonderman, political analyst. When it comes to turnout and mail-in ballots, and there are mail-in ballots now in all 64 counties in Colorado, is it just a matter of motivation to open up an envelope? I mean, it's different when, in the old days, we think, oh, hey, it might snow on election day. Well, who's the passionate voters coming out? Or you get the buses to bring your voters out. Now it's just a matter of encouraging people to open up their mail and do something about it. Does that make turnout a different argument? Yeah,
the rules have changed. The process has changed. Certainly the timeline of the election has changed. First of all, I just have to state that I have some friends in common with Patty and Natasha, so I'm not going to attack their social circles. There is some overlap there. We'll see how the Democrats are able to navigate and maximize these new rules. First time we've had an all-mail ballot, or mail, M-A-I-L. If it was all-mail the other way, Republicans would be in pretty good shape here. But all-mail ballot in a general election. I think this election really comes down to a national wave versus a national wave that boosts Republicans versus a demonstrated capacity for a ground game in Colorado that has historically boosted and rescued Democrats. and we'll see which one trumps the other here shortly. These polls are all closed. Both of these races are at the margin. If anyone had told us months ago that the governor's race, we're going to be sitting here with ballots in mailboxes, and the governor's race is a 50-50 proposition, none of us would have bought that. But it tells you something. Lastly, we were talking before we taped. Beaupre is certainly in this game, but the question is he doing enough? He's just sort of a bystander in this race, to my thinking. Is he doing anything or sufficient anything to close the sale?
Natasha Gardner, senior editor with 5280 magazine. We have hopefully not besmirched, but we've definitely mentioned your social circles quite a bit here. Why don't you elaborate on that point, and then also what you think about the races as it currently stands?
Sure. Well, I went to Smith College, an all-women's college, and I don't think I've talked this much about birth control since then. Everyone I've talked to, I mean, there's things that I know now about people I had no intention of ever knowing about, because Republicans, Democrats, or Independents are very, very interested in this, in particular women voters. So that one issue impetus of that's what they're going to vote on, well, guess what? That's what they're going to vote on, at least in my social circles. I think that this campaign is interesting because I think Hickenlooper benefits from doing okay on some major issues like Aurora and flooding, but unfortunately, Udall, who might have the same or similar record, isn't benefiting from that. What he's running up against is this national dislike for what's happening in D.C. I mean, there's that poll that compared it to lice, and people in Congress aren't doing so well in that comparison. But what's surprising to me is that Gardner isn't caught up in that. So I wouldn't be surprised if Colorado, without a huge Democratic turnout, sends Gardner back to D.C. But I think what will be interesting is when Gardner comes back and has to run for re-election, he's going to run into the exact same campaign that he's been running against Udall. So this question of what do we do with DC is not going to be resolved during the tenure of either Udall or Gardner. It's going to come up again. So unfortunately, we're going to see just as many ads in Colorado next election cycle and the one after that.
Talk about bad news. Holy smokes. Some folks were looking for the light at the end of the tunnel. It's not coming anytime soon. That's all the time we have for Colorado Inside Postgame this week. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you think. For everyone here at CPT12.org, I'm Dominic Dezzutti. Thanks for watching.